On my journey to completing all of the classic Resident Evil games, I'm now finally on Resident Evil 2. This is the game that everyone says is the best out of the original trilogy. If you ask anyone about Resident Evil 2, they'll tell you it took everything that Resident Evil 1 did and made it better. The game has better graphics, better controls, more action, 2 separate campaigns with 4 different sides in total, tons of extra content, and Resident Evil 2 introduced us to Claire, Leon, Ada Wong, and Sherry Birkin, 4 of Resident Evil's most beloved characters, especially when it comes to Leon and Ada. As a noob to Resident Evil 2, I've never played this game before, like at all. Like I at least played Resident Evil 1, but I never played Resident Evil 2. Now that I finally beat it, well, at least I beat Claire A and Leon B side, I'm finally here to tell what I think about Resident Evil 2. And what I have to say is not too far off of what you've heard before, but I think because I'm new to the game, I should give a different perspective in how I interpret classic Resident Evil and how Resident Evil 2 may have improved on certain things. It dropped the ball on probably the most important thing that made Resident Evil 1 and even a game like Dino Crisis so great. Before we get into the review, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the hype button. I'm showing you on screen right now what a hype button is because some people do not see it. And I appreciate all of you for helping me out. All of this is free and it helps out the channel greatly. I am very grateful for every one of you because you could be watching anyone and doing anything else with your time, but you decide to listen to little old me. So I want to officially say thank you. God bless each and every one of you. I hope you guys are having a great day. But now let's get back into the review. If you've asked me what made Resident Evil 1 so great, it had to be the survival mechanics. Managing your bullets, deciding which hallway you would clear full of zombies to make your run easier, making sure you save frequently, but also remembering that saves are limited and that you shouldn't waste all your ink ribbons. Did you have too many things in your inventory at once? Did you have to leave something important behind and have to remember how to get back to it? All these little decisions made Resident Evil 1 so great, and throughout the entire game, I was strategizing no matter if I was exploring, puzzle solving, or fighting. Strategizing single-handedly defined the survival horror genre to me. It is a key component that once it is taken away, it changes the genre. Not necessarily for good or bad, but it just makes it not survival horror anymore. Enter Resident Evil 2. Yes, what people say about it is true. It took everything from Resident Evil 1 and made it better, except for this one aspect. I don't think that they took the survival mechanics of Resident Evil 1 and increased them. In fact, I think they decreased them a significant amount, to the point that I felt like I didn't have to think much about playing Resident Evil 2 like I did with Resident Evil 1. Now, before you say maybe it's just because I've gotten so good at the games, I don't think that's the case. When I came off of Resident Evil 1, I was very confident in tank controls and strategizing. I understood how that game worked. When I played Dino Crisis, the same thing happened. I came in with the knowledge of Resident Evil 1, but Dino Crisis had its own special mechanics that made me have to strategize there. I didn't know the lay of the land. I didn't know where I was going in that game, and that applies to Resident Evil 2. So why does Resident Evil 2 feel so different when it comes to the strategy aspect of the Resident Evil formula? It has to deal with the fact that Resident Evil 2 is the Resident Evil game that actually made Resident Evil more action-based. A lot of people give that credit to Resident Evil 4. Some older people say Resident Evil 3. I'm going to say it's actually Resident Evil 2 that started it all, which is crazy because it is the second game in the franchise. So after Resident Evil 1, they just went action all of a sudden, and a lot of people don't even credit Resident Evil 2 for that, which is kind of strange. The reason why they don't is probably because a lot of people didn't realize that they did it because they do it so subtly. But for someone who really loved the strategizing part of Resident Evil 1, I noticed it immediately. In the beginning of Resident Evil 2, you're going to run through a destroyed city, and I love this segment because it shows you how much Raccoon City is going to hell because of the infected. But outside of the story elements and how cool it looks, you're going to notice this immediately. They give you tons of bullets that you could fight off these zombies. And I thought this was just a set piece moment. And then when I get into the RPD, it's back to Resident Evil 1 where I have limited ammo and I have to figure out where to go and strategize like I did before, but not really. This game in the beginning, if you search around a little bit, you're gonna find tons of health, tons of bullets, and you're gonna know where to go because they limit where you can go in the beginning of Resident Evil 2 way more than they did in Resident Evil 1. In Resident Evil 1, after you experience the first zombie, you have a few places you can go. You have an upstairs and a downstairs, and you can go to the right or to the left. Now, to the left was the first zombie, so you probably wouldn't go back to that direction, but you can go to the right side of the mansion or go upstairs and go to the right or the left side of the mansion. By giving the player the opportunity to wander around the mansion, It feeds into exploration, mystery, and eventually teach you strategy because you'll probably die on one of these paths and then you'll take a new one. How does that reflect in Resident Evil 2? Well, I'll tell you, in the beginning of Resident Evil 2, sort of like the zombie, once you hit the RPD, you're going to meet the cop. After you meet the cop, he's going to give you a key, and you can only go in 2 directions now. And then there's only really one direction that the game suggests you go in. Why? Because one direction has a hallway full of zombies. I'm talking about at least, it might be close to 10 zombies in this hallway. And at that point, you're not going to have a reasonable gun to deal with them. And even if you have a lot of bullets, you know that the pistol is not going to be able to take out all these zombies. So you can either run into the next room where you're going to face a bunch of zombies, and that ends up being a dead end, which is going to teach you to go to the left side of the RPD. Now, this is where Resident Evil 2 is kind of cool. Resident Evil 2 is way more horror-based than Resident Evil 1. So when you finally go to this left side, you're going to see the licker come across the glass window, which actually scared me, which is very impressive for this game to be that old. But I was able to go past the licker, and then you get into the hallway with the drop blood, and then the licker's going to drop down. I'm sure for most people, this is what Resident Evil 2 is going for. You either deal with the hallway full of zombies, or you deal with this creepy thing you've never seen before. But if you're not that scared, you're going to realize you could just run past this licker. You would rather deal with one licker than multiple zombies. And although some people might have struggled with tank control still, compared to Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2 actually gives a faster player character. So no matter if you're Leon or Claire, you move faster than you did in Resident Evil 1. And the hallway's a lot bigger, so you can easily run past most enemies in this game as long as they're not flooding the hallway like the one I mentioned before. So really, the game developer strategically gave you one clear, logical path to run down in Resident Evil 2, which is great for guiding the player, but bad for exploration and mystery and strategy. Resident Evil 2 holds your hand in a way that doesn't feel like it's holding your hand, but for anyone that comes straight off of Resident Evil 1 and even Dino Crisis, you can feel it immediately that this game is pushing you in one direction, and if you follow that path, you're going to be able to breeze through the game easily. If they wanted to make sure that everyone could get through the story at a reasonable time, they could have guided the player still, but instead limit the amount of bullets. Because like I said, you have so many bullets in this game and you have so much ammo that I don't remember any time where I did not have ammo to fight off a zombie. Whereas in Resident Evil 1, there were times I had barely any ammo and the only ammo I had was for powerful guns and there were powerful enemies in the environment. So I would rather save that for them than waste them on easier zombies. Again, that goes back to strategy. There was never a moment in Resident Evil 2 where I was so low on resources outside of my Leon B campaign, but that was because I was trying to speed run that time. I guess then that's where strategy comes in, but I'll talk about that later in another video when I actually try to do a complete speed run playthrough. But outside of me speed running and actually literally just not picking things up, trying to beat the game fast as possible, if you pick up everything you see and play the game like normal, you will be fine. This doesn't make Resident Evil 2 bad, it just means that the thing I liked about Resident Evil 1 and Dino Crisis is missing here. So what did Resident Evil 2 provide, and did I like that? It provides, like I said, way more action, way more horror, a better story, a lot more content, and all that stuff is great. Going back to that hallway full of zombies, when I was playing as Claire and I finally got the rocket launcher, I went right back there and blew them all away. It was fun seeing their bodies dismember and fall apart. And that's something you can even experience when you play as Leon in his campaign, except for you'll be having the shotgun instead. Resident Evil 2 definitely traded in puzzle solving and strategizing for more action, but were the puzzles bad in this game? I'ma say no, but I will say that they weren't as good because the puzzles are very similar to the ones in Resident Evil 1. The statue puzzle, where you have to move the statues and then get the jewel from the statue holding it, is very similar to the one where you have to smash the statue above. The difference is that in Resident Evil 1, because you can explore and go so many places, you don't even know where this jewel necessarily is. You may not even realize this statue is holding a jewel or that you can even smash it down on the ground. Not only that, you may actually find where this jewel is supposed to go before you even realize that it's something you need to collect. In Resident Evil 2, that doesn't really happen anymore. In Resident Evil 2, you're going to pass this puzzle and you're going to see the jewel in his hand and you're going to know to get it before moving on. It's no reason to just leave it here unless you just have no inventory space, but then again, below you is a save room where you can stock up and store things that you don't need. Resident Evil 2 also sucks at challenging you when it comes to the puzzles. Like, only are the puzzles easy to figure out, but there's no penalty. There's a puzzle in Resident Evil 1 that if you guess too early and press this button, you'll realize that you'll get gassed out. You can quickly get out the room before you die. Or there's a puzzle where a bunch of pictures, if you get the answer wrong, then the scarecrows will attack you. RE2 has none of that. There is no puzzle that you can fail. It's simple as put the item in the slot. If there is a puzzle that you can fail, the puzzles were so easy that I never end up failing for any of them. So correct me if I'm wrong, but every puzzle in this game just involves you putting the item where it needs to go. And if you get it wrong, nothing happens. You just can't progress. Also, let's look back at this save room. I noticed something kind of funny about it. Resident Evil 2, I don't know if they consciously did this. It reuses a lot of design elements of Resident Evil 1, like the RPD, the opening area doesn't seem like it at first, but once you unlock the ladder, you'll realize, oh, this is just the introduction of the mansion, because the mansion had an upstairs, downstairs, right? Once you get the ladder in this game, this has an upstairs, downstairs, and this is where it's tricky. The layout is the mansion, but flipped around. So if you enter the mansion from the door, you're gonna see the stair leading up, and then on the right, there's 2 doors that you can go to on the ground, and on the left, there's 1 door. It just flips in this game. So on the right is 1 door and on the left there are 2 doors. I don't know if they did that on purpose or I'm just seeing things, but this is really just the mansion flipped around. The area where there's a save room with a film development room in it, this is very familiar to the save room that's in Resident Evil 1, where that has a leading staircase right next to it as well. The hallway with the dogs busting through the glass is no different than the hallway with the scarecrows flying. Matter of fact, they just blended the scarecrow moment with the dog moment from Resident Evil 1 into one big hallway in Resident Evil 2. There's a puzzle that requires you to light a picture to get a jewel from it, which is no different than you lighting this picture to get the map from Resident Evil 1. The entire game is very familiar. Eventually, once you get through Resident Evil 2, you'll end up in this underground laboratory. In Resident Evil 1, you get to an underground laboratory, and then there's a self-destruct sequence. There's another self-destruct sequence in Resident Evil 2. It's so much of this game as Resident Evil 1, but they removed the strategy. It's like they said, let's make Resident Evil 1 again with more action. Now, even though I keep saying they removed the strategy, I'm talking about overall. Strategy is in every aspect of Resident Evil 1. Resident Evil 2 does have a form of strategy, it's just not as much as Resident Evil 1. For example, lickers can't see, so if you move quietly around them, you can sneak up on them and get a shot in. I noticed that this game has way more enemies that react differently to bullets. So in Resident Evil 1, the more powerful enemies, you should shoot them with the more powerful guns. Now that applies in Resident Evil 2 as well, but I noticed when I played as Claire and used her grenade launcher, some enemies would die instantly with an acid round. Some would die instantly with a flame grenade round. So you need to experiment with that, but again, that doesn't compare to the experimentation that you got from Resident Evil 1. Now, I guess in order to make the game harder, there are some things that they did that were cool when it comes to damage. In Resident Evil 1, if you took damage, your health would just lower, but in Resident Evil 2, not only will you limp, which gives a visual indication that you're taking too much damage without having to pause the game to see the actual health bar, but not only do you limp, you also walk slower. Like if you're almost about to die, your character moves so slow that you better figure out something fast, because if you're finding something like a liquor, it's going to definitely get you. I also like that they added some physics to Resident Evil 2. In moments where you're fighting hordes of zombies, if one grabs you and you quickly toss it off you can actually knock a bunch of zombies down. This is actually a way that if you're willing to take damage, you could get past some of these hallways full of zombies, but you're going to take a lot of damage doing this. So I still wouldn't advise you to do it, but it is something you could use to your advantage. Weaving past zombies is still something you should learn to do. When I was playing as Leon on his B campaign, I was just running past a bunch of zombies because, like I said, I was trying to speed run at the time, and it was very fun just juking past zombies. I don't know, this could be my imagination, but I feel like Leon might be faster than Claire, and there are some differences between the campaigns. That's something I should mention. Claire and Leon get different sets of guns. Leon gets actual upgrades to his gun, so his pistol can get better accuracy by finding certain attachments, and his shotgun can get more powerful. Like, it gets so powerful that his shotgun, literally, if you fire it, will push you back to another screen, causing the dynamic camera angle to shift. Like, that's how strong his shotgun gets. Claire's the only one that gets the grenade launcher, and she starts off the game with a lockpick, so she's kind of like the new Jill. And Leon, of course, is the new Chris, seeing as that Leon gets the lighter and he has to find small keys to unlock different drawers, where if you're playing as Claire, you could just unlock them with the lockpick. In RE1, Jill and Chris had different levels of strength, but in RE2, I think they're the same. The only difference is that going back to that limping system and the speed in which you limp when you take too much damage, Claire actually moves faster overall no matter which version of her limp she's in, while Leon moves very slow when he begins to limp, and if he's about to die, it's over, bro. He's moving like a turtle. So in RE2, puzzles are way simpler. They take a step back. There's no more strategy. There was rarely even a time where I found myself putting something in an item box and then realized I got to run back to go get it. And even then, a lot of the item boxes are oftentimes close by a puzzle. So they clearly designed this map to be as convenient as possible. When it comes to fighting, there is not too many moments in this game. No, actually, there's no moment outside of the very beginning where you have to decide to go left or right, the hallway full of zombies or the hallway with the liquor, where I actually had to say to myself, what side do I want to take when it comes to fighting? Because you have so many bullets at once at all times, you're going to clear out the RPD. Resident Evil 1, I would clear out certain hallways because I know I would frequently go through there, and there is none of that in RE2. You're going to just find yourself killing everything because you have enough resources to do so. Again, this doesn't make RE2 bad, it just makes RE2 different, more action-packed. And they do feel into that. Like I said, the physics when you knock zombies down, when you shoot them now, they split in half. You can even blow a zombie open with a shotgun and then he'll crawl on the ground the rest of his body. Like, all that stuff is cool. So it's just a different interpretation of the RE formula. But I do feel that the lack of strategy takes away from the survival part of the survival horror genre that Resident Evil began. Even in RE1, there were moments where you had to fight bosses, which RE2 has them, but it's not as many. RE1, there were moments where if you went into a boss room not realizing that's where you were going, because the game doesn't necessarily warn you about that, you may not have enough resources on you at once and you're probably going to die and have to restart over. RE2 has boss fights, and there is some cool mechanics where I know when I was fighting the alligator, I just kept shooting at him till he ran away and bust through a hole in the wall. Then I realized that, like, as I was walking past where I was fighting him, I could like press a button on the wall and then his tank fell out. And I said, am I supposed to blow this up? So I restarted my save. He grabs the tank and then I blew it up and his mouth blew up. And I thought that was really cool. That is a form of strategy that I wish the game had more of. But again, it just lacked in that department. But what this does feed into are the choices. Now, RE2 has choices like RE1 had, but not to the same extent. RE1 had like literal dialogue choices that could change the story, where you would talk to a character and ask them to do something for you or not do something for you, could change the outcome of things. RE2's choices are, do you power up this box that will shut down the windows in one section of the RPD versus the other? And if you don't do it, the other character have to deal with it. When it comes to picking up certain items, if you don't pick them up for one character, then the other character could pick them up. The guns, they don't have to worry about because they have different guns. But those are the dynamic ways they change the choices in this game. Now, some things, this is where the dual story thing doesn't work too well. RE1 has an issue where Chris and Jill's campaign technically are separate campaigns, but which one's canon? RE2, what it tried to do was say, this is in one universe, Claire got to the RPD first, and another universe, Leon got to it first. And then they swap out who did what, when, and where, and how. That works sorta, but it's not accurate like 100%. Like, for example, I had to put the fire out on the helicopter. Now in Claire's campaign, I don't see the helicopter crash. Leon's explained how it crashed, so that was cool to see, but it was kind of lame that I had to put the fire out as Leon when I put the fire out as Claire. It's not like the helicopter catch back on fire. Like, that right there I can forgive. It's a PlayStation 1 era game, but imagine a world where they like somehow made it sync perfectly. Then this game would have been like crazy. Like, I don't know. I would have came back and said, like, if they did all of this back then, there's no excuse for them not to do something this great today. As far as the story is concerned, RE2 is leaps and bounds better. Not only does it feed into the lore of RE1, explaining to you what Chris and Jill and everyone was up to after those events, but it also touches on how the RPD is formed, what happened here, why is everyone dead, why is Chief Irons the only one around, who is Sherry, who's this girl on this desk. All that stuff is solved, and there's even parts of the story that's not fully explained just outright. For example, Chief Irons is a creep. There's a letter that comes in that you can read how creepy he exactly is, and behind his desk, if you don't think about it in the moment, if you're just playing the game trying to progress to the underground area, you don't really, if you don't put two and two together, behind his desk is a torture dungeon. And when you see this girl on his desk, and he makes these weird comments about her skin and how he likes taxidermy, and in that letter, it implies that he's a rapist. So when you throw all that together, and then he has a secret dungeon behind his desk with a bunch of blood and human remains in it, you can kind of guess what he's probably been doing over the years down here. All that stuff is like wow, I can't believe they went this far. Like, this game is way more bloodier than any other Resident Evil. The sound design feeds into the creepiness of it, because when you're walking on the floor, like each part of the floor has different sound designs. I love walking on the concrete, then going to the wood and all that stuff is creepy. Or walking in a hallway, then you'll step on glass, which feeds into the liquor design as well, because they can hear you step on that stuff. The only part about RE2 that in the design, the atmosphere department that fell apart is that the game has music. The music is fine, it's good. It's some of the most classic music you'll hear. Anytime you hear like a Capcom fan on YouTube playing some music in the background, it's probably RE2 music that they're using. But RE1 had tons of moments where there's no sound at all in the mansion, and having no sound at all in a horror game, and it's just the sounds of you walking or the guns going off, the zombies making creepy noises. That goes further with horror than having like a soundtrack playing in the background. So that's just a little complaint. But when it comes to everything else, the atmosphere, I love going down in the sewers with the alligator. And my favorite part is where the spiders come in. They bring the spiders back from RE1, but the way like the spiders are lined up on the wall, they're giant. You can just see one off in the distance. Almost have this 3D. I mean, the spiders are 3D, but it has a 3D effect where it feels like it's crawling on you, but your character model is nowhere near the spider. I love this moment. If you have arachnophobia, this is probably like freaking you out. But for me, I don't have that, and it was just cool to me. But like I was saying, the story overall is good. Now, I only know the perspective of Claire A, Leon B. I hear that the stories are not that different between the two, but I will come back after playing Leon A and Claire B and tell you my opinion about that story. I'll just talk about the story overall. But basically, Claire's campaign, you're going to bump into Sherry. Leon's campaign, you're going to bump into Ada. You can even play as Sherry and Ada, and there's really no difference between playing them and playing any other character in the RE universe. The only difference is that Sherry doesn't have a gun, and she actually moves like a kid. I thought that was really cool that they made her move like a kid. She's slow, like a kid probably would be. She has to hop down on places, climb up boxes real slow. She struggles to climb up. When you're with her and Claire, she'll like grab onto Claire's hand. I thought all those little details added to the lore, to the story, to the atmosphere of RE2. I really enjoyed that stuff. Now, Sherry and Claire share a big sister, little sister relationship, and Leon and Ada supposedly share a romantic relationship, but they really don't. From my perspective, Leon and Ada just happen to be two grown people that bumped into each other. Leon is a cop. He's a good dude. He's trying to take care of a civilian. Maybe he secretly has a crush on Ada, but there's no build up to that. Ada is so busy trying to focus on her mission. She almost leaves Leon for dead when he gets shot taking a bullet for her. Ada doesn't seem to care about anything. She even openly admits she's not capable of caring about other people. She is about her mission. But somehow at the end, she says she loves him and kisses him, and he kisses her back, and then she saves him at the end, which I thought was cool, how she came in as a shadow, saved him. But I always thought it was more to the story because I knew about Leon and Ada from RE4. That was my first interaction with them, and you could tell there was something there that I just missed because I never played RE2. But now that I played it, I'm like, there's nothing here. They just kind of just make them like each other, and there's no build up to that. Maybe in Leon A's campaign, there's build up to it, but that shouldn't have anything to do with the fact that Leon B's campaign did not do that at all. So that's one place I would say they dropped the ball, but it's not a big deal. It's just something I noticed. Even though I beat RE2, there's still so much to do. Leon A, Claire B, arrange mode, where the items in the game are rearranged around. There's getting higher ranks. There's unlocking all the infinite weapons. There's the mode where you play as Hunk. There's the mode where you play as a piece of tofu. There's a lot of content in Resident Evil 2, so even though I beat the story, at least one side of the campaign, there's more things to do. RE2 is jam-packed full of content, and I'm sure for anybody at this time, love to spend the money that they spent on it because they were playing this game for a long time, and I enjoyed the game enough where I'm going to continue to play the game, unlock all the extra costumes, and play all the other game modes. RE2, as someone who's never played it before until now, still holds up to this day. It was a great game. I still feel like RE1 had better survival mechanics, and I feel that that part of the Resident Evil formula is missing here. But when it comes to the action part and everything else, they improved upon it. If they could somehow blend the action, blend the horror, and blend back in the strategy of trying to figure out where to go and how to survive, well, if they did all that and added dinosaurs, then you'll get Dino Crisis. So, all in all, Resident Evil 2 may have not been what I thought it was, but at least Dino Crisis is the real Resident Evil 1 sequel, at least from my perspective. But RE2, can't complain. I enjoyed this game. I loved it. And I will return to RE2 Remake again one day and compare it to this game, but I could tell you just off of my muscle memory, I like this game more than the remake. The only thing the remake did better than this is I feel that the Tyrant was handled better in RE2 Remake. That's about it. And you could say RE2 Remake has better graphics, but I think the art direction in this game is superior. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you still think RE2 Original holds up to this day? Do you prefer the remake over RE2, or do you like both? I do technically like both, but I do like this a lot better. I'm still gonna go through the other ends of the campaign, Leon A, Claire B. I still wanna get all the extra content in this game, so I'm gonna still cover RE2 as time goes on. But as for now, I think I'm gonna move on to RE3. Peace out, Key Gaming, God bless. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the hype button. Again, I'm gonna show you where it is down below. All of that is helping the channel. It is free and I appreciate every single one of you. And please let me know anything else that I should cover in the Resident Evil like universe that I missed out. I'm thinking about, what was that? It was a Resident Evil game that was a first person shooter on PS1. I don't know if I can play that, but if I could figure out a way to play that through maybe emulation or something, I'll try it. I'm really getting into Resident Evil and its counterparts like Dino Crisis. I want to play Dino Crisis 2, so that'd be something I do in the future as well. But peace out, Key Gaming. Let me know what you think in the comments. God bless. And I'll see you guys in the next video.
Game over.